Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank everyone in this webinar for participating in this second conference organized by our departments and Al-Akhawain University. As part of the professional English learning program, and with the aim to help participants to this program to develop their language skill. The Institute of Finance is launching the IDF Thursdays, a series of weekly webinars dealing with diverse topics in English languages. Today's conference is on the COVID-19, and on this occasion, I would like to thank Dr. Khajou, Dr. Tahtah, Dr. Shafiq, Dr. Aznoud, and Dr. Atina. I also want to thank the presenters, Ben Hussein, Madam Ashiri, Ben Mahmoud, and the moderators, Abu Darqa, Khatir, and Baba. Now I will give the floor to Dr. Tahtah, and of course, let's all make this afternoon an enriching and productive English experience. Dr. Tahtah, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Sadi. First, I would like to thank you and to thank the Institute of Finance for taking this initiative. It's very meaningful and significant indeed, and we know very well that it's not an easy undertaking. And I would like also to thank the presenters and moderators for volunteering to run this webinar and animate it. And special thanks go also to all the attendees. Thank you also to the professors, to the trainers who have done a great job with their participant. And indeed, on behalf of my colleagues, Dr. Aznoud, Dr. Shafiq, and Ms. Atina, we feel that it's never enough to stress our high esteem to our dear participants, to the Institute of Finance for the great job they have been doing, for their great sense of devotion, commitment, and dedication all through the training journey we have been going through. It's in fact a pleasure to be, an honor to be with you all today. I just would like to stress the fact that this training of has had such a great magnitude in terms of impact that we simply feel proud of what has been achieved so far at many levels. And it's a great example also of a great collaboration between the Ministry of Economy and Finance and Al-Akhawain University. At Al-Akhawain University, it has always been our core interest to provide customized and tailored answers to your expectations. And as we say, hard work pays. Obviously, hard work from both sides, the trainers, and the Institute of Finance. So we are at Al-Akhawain looking forward to more collaboration and partnerships. And I don't want to linger over this more. Now I give the floor. I know that time is strained. I give the floor to the first moderator to introduce the first speaker. Thank you very much, everyone, and the best of luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Mr. Jad. All right, dear professors, colleagues, and attendees, good evening. I'm glad to participate in the moderation of this webinar organized by the Ministry of Finance with the collaboration of the Al-Akhawain University. But before starting, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Moulay Yusuf Abu Darqa. I'm head of the Central Office for Evaluation Procedures in the Control of the Value Service at the Customs and Indirect Taxes Administration. We will start this webinar with the first presentation under the title Critical Thinking and COVID-19 Management, provided by Mrs. Fatim Zahra Ben Hussein. But before giving her the floor, let me give you a short biography about her. So Mrs. Ben Hussein is a finance inspector at the General Inspection of Finance. She is a PhD holder in law, and she is studying for another one in psychology. And of course, she is an upper intermediate participant of business and professional English as well. Now, I would like to remind you that the temporal structure of the presentations is 10 minutes for the PowerPoint presentation and about 20 minutes for the discussion. All right. So without further ado, I wish good luck for Mrs. Benhassin, and I give her the voice to start the presentation.
Thank you very much, dear colleague, for the presentation, and thank you for all teachers and colleagues. Special thanks for my teacher, Dr. Abdurrahman Aznoud, for the guidance, for I thank you so much. Today I will talk to you about critical thinking. Critical thinking and COVID-19 management in Morocco. But before hastening the definition of critical thinking, let's try a quick experiment. If we have the choice to vaccinate against COVID-19 or not, and we want to find out, certainly we are going to Google it. So we will find contradictory information. On the one hand, we will find that the vaccine is ineffective. It has serious side effects. It is a scheme of pharmaceutical companies. It is only a component at the international scale to control humanity, etc. On the other hand, we will find that vaccination is a safe way to help build protection among citizens. Getting vaccinated may also protect people around you. Also, we will find COVID-19 vaccination is the only tool now to help stop the pandemic, etc. The question here is, how can we reconcile these contradictory claims? So the answer is by being a critical thinker. So what does critical thinking mean? Why should we care about critical thinking? What are critical thinking standards? What hinders critical thinking? And also, how about critical thinking at the time of the pandemic? Let's start by the first question. What is critical thinking? Critical thinking has nothing to do with criticizing others in a negative way or being surly or cynical. Rather, it refers to the habit of carefully evaluating ideas and beliefs, both those we hear from others and those we formulate on our own, and only accepting those that meet certain standards. It is the ability to think in an organized and in a rational manner in order to understand connections between ideas and or facts. It helps us decide what to believe in. Therefore, we can infer that critical thinking is not driven by answers, it is driven by the questions that you ask. So, why should we care about it? What can it offer us? Suppose you must make an important decision about your future career or the person with whom you might want to spend the rest of your life, or your financial investments, or some other critical matters. What considerations might come to your mind? Perhaps you would wonder that you don't need to think about it at all, or you should just, as the old saying goes, follow your heart. In doing so, you are already clarifying the nature of your decision. Purely rational, purely emotional, or a combination of both. And following this process, you are already starting to think critically. So to make your decision, you started by asking questions. Once you examine the answers, you would then assess whether the information is sufficient and perhaps proceed to research further information from reliable sources. Note that all of these steps, you are making distinctions. You would distinguish between relevant and irrelevant questions, and from the relevant questions, you would distinguish the clear and precise ones from the others. You would also distinguish the answers that are helpful from those that are not. And finally, you would separate the good sources for your research, leaving aside the weak and biased ones. Making decisions also determines the path that your examination will follow. If you decide to examine the best reasons that support each of the possible options available, then this choice takes you in the direction of logic. One part of logical reasoning is the weighing of evidence. When making an important decision, you will need to identify which factors you consider favorable and which you consider unfavorable. You can then see which option has the strongest evidence in its favor. In a time of international or local crisis, the steps are the same. With regards to COVID-19 crisis, nobody really knows when this will end or how the world will look like at the aftermath of COVID-19. There are many second and third order effects still unclear, both in terms of the virus itself and the economic and psychological impact of the social distancing and confinement measures in place. Yet, one may already take a few lessons from this first year. A noticeable aspect is how critical thinking has become a matter of high stakes. Over the past year, all countries have had to make really tough decisions. Should we close or reopen businesses? Should we all be wearing a mask while going outside? Should we let workers show up for work even though basic safety and sanitary conditions are not in place? Although the coronavirus happens to be a global pandemic affecting human life across borders, nationalities, ages, and colors, the impact has been greatly proportional in many ways to how prompt local decision making in handling the pandemic and enforcing policies in place. For us, Morocco reacted decisively to the threat of COVID-19 pandemic, declared the state of emergency 2 weeks after Morocco confirmed its first case of COVID-19. And it took a lot of exceptional measures, including the lockdown, the remote workplace, borders, schools, and non-essential businesses closure, prohibition of manifestations, obligation to wear the mask, launch of vaccination. All these measures allowed the government to keep the pandemic situation under control. So how does critical thinking help Morocco establish situational awareness and impose its effective strategy, direction, and action in a situation that's exceptionally volatile and uncertain? In such circumstances, information available to the decision makers is likely to be ambiguous. Also, there may be too much of it, and what is there may appear to be unstructured, confusing, and possibly contradictory. The situation is likely to be uncertain, and suitable courses of action may not be readily apparent or clear enough to support confident and effective decision making. However, this may be exactly when urgent choices and critical decisions have to be made. Most experienced crisis managers well recognize these problems as characteristics of crisis. They complicate the process of managing information in order to establish situational awareness. This awareness is the essential basis for effective choices of strategy, direction, and action. Shared situational awareness implies creating and maintaining a common understanding of what is going on, what that means in terms of its implications, and what it might mean in terms of reasonable deductions that can be made about future developments. There is a range of critical thinking skills and standards that decision makers can use. So to succeed, what skills crisis managers should cultivate as critical thinkers? I choose 5 of them. The first one is we have to become an active learner. If you want it, you have to seek actively out solutions and go to the answer. Don't wait for it to come to you. The second, separate emotions from facts, simply because thinking and feeling are not the same. Then you should ask yourself, am I acting because of an emotional impulse or because it is logical? The third, become open-minded, means accept multiple possible correct answers. Try and approach problems from different perspectives. 4, avoid logical fallacies. A logical fallacy is an argument that contains a mistake of reasoning. For example, if I say Layla's arguments are bad, therefore Layla is a bad person. This is a logical fallacy. The 5th skill is be autonomous. Intellectual autonomy is a willingness and ability to think for one's own self. A person with this virtue is not dependent on others when it comes to forming her beliefs. He or she is not a mere receptacle for information and ideas deposited by others. In other words, thinking is not primarily passive, it is active. The intellectually autonomous manager is capable of forming his or her own judgments, initiating the reflection and asking probing questions and making the best decisions. This skill is the most important advantage of Morocco during COVID-19. Morocco has been independent in its decisions and has not been affected or influenced by the decisions of other countries. Also, to be a critical thinker, there are at least 8 critical thinking standards that we should consider. The first one is the clarity. Clarity is the gateway standard. If a statement is unclear, we cannot determine whether it is accurate or relevant. In fact, we cannot tell anything about it because we don't know yet what he's saying. We can, for example, ask the speaker, could you elaborate further? Could you give me an example, etc. Accuracy. The statement can be clear but not accurate. For example, when I say rich people are happier than poor people, this is not accurate. We have to ask some questions like, is that really true? How could we check that? How could we find out if that is true? The third standard is precision. A statement can be both clear and accurate, but not precise. Example, if someone says we must not vaccinate against COVID-19, it has multiple side effects. We know that all vaccines have side effects like fever, but what kinds of side effects has the COVID-19 vaccine? Are they proven by clinical trials? So we need more details, and the speaker has to be more specific. The fourth standard is the relevance. A statement can be clear, accurate, and precise, but not relevant to the question at issue. For example, this year the government has made a lot of effort to support the sectors impacted by the health crisis. So economic growth this year must exceed 6%. In reality, the increase in the growth rate is not only measured by the financial efforts of the government. The fifth standard is the depth. Statements can be clear, accurate, precise, and relevant, but superficial. For example, if I say nobody tell us why public servants must contribute to the COVID-19 special accounts. How does your answer address the complexities in the question? How are you taking into account the problems in the question? Is that dealing with the most significant factors? The sixth standard is the breadth. A line of reasoning might be clear, accurate, precise, relevant, and deep, but still ignore another side of the argument. So do we need to consider another point of view? Is there another way to look at this question? The seventh one is the logic. When the combination of thoughts are mutually supporting and make sense in combination, the thinking is logical. For example, when I say Superman can see through anything, Superman can see through walls, so Superman can see through you. Does all this make sense together? Does it follow evidences? How does this follow from what I said before, etc.? The last one is fairness. It means not identifying truth with self-interest, not resisting unfamiliar ideas, prejudging issues, stereotyping outsiders. To be a good thinker, you should apply fairness in your thinking and ask yourself if you have vested interest in this issue, if you are sympathetically representing the viewpoints of others, and if you are open-minded. Now let's talk about barriers to critical thinking. What hinders critical thinking? We have here some examples. First one is the lack of awareness of the lack of practice of rational thinking. We are talking here about those ignorant of how to think critically. The second one is the personal biasness. Some people deliberately avoid critical thinking in situations where outcomes may put them in unfavorable situations. Third one, inherited opinion or cultural biasness. Most of the people die with the opinions they inherit from parents and close ones. For example, more than 80% of those who are born Jewish or Buddhist or Muslim will die as Jewish or Buddhist or Muslims. Intellectual arrogance. The arrogance is due to one's education level or qualifications, refusing to think critically in open situations. Also, there is the intellectual laziness. Just lazy people, some of us are just lazy to think critically. And the last one is the black or white thinking. And we are talking about those who think in one of the extremes without considering all the in-between possibilities. At the end, let me say that to be a critical thinkers, we have to be willing to say, I don't know, and then be willing to do something to change that. And I add, don't be like this or like this. Let us be like this or like this. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you, Mrs. Benhassin, for this presentation. Yeah, I think that the choice of the topic was made by itself because this subject touches on the COVID-19, which it's now more than a year that it plunges the world population in a real nightmare. Yes, thank you for your presentation. The choice is also more relevant since the Ministry of Finance has started a first vaccination campaign for the benefit of its employees. So maybe if we had this presentation a little bit earlier, we will have the skills and the techniques to make our choice more relevant of doing vaccine or not doing the vaccine. In addition, some of the techniques that you have presented can also be transposed to other choices available to us during our life. So it's not just the techniques or skills available just for the choice of vaccination or not. So it's some kind of techniques that can be used also in other choices that we face in our life. All right, with that being said, let's start the debate phase by leaving the field open to your questions or participation. So who wants to start the show?
Can I go first, please?
Yes, of course.
I didn't know how to raise my hand.
In
So
fact,
why?
you have it at the right south.
Okay, I will
Under
see
the
it.
participant's
Okay,
name, there
I
is a
will.
little hand.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I would
Welcome.
like first to recommend Ms. Fatim Zahra for her very interesting presentation. And I don't have a question. I would like just to make a comment about skills that should be cultivated. And one of the skills that took my attention, the fact that we should separate emotions from facts. It's very true. I think we should apply this skill in our daily work time, independently of the COVID-19, because I think where we mix emotions and facts, we won't take rational decisions. And also our judgment will be biased. This is why these skills are very important. Thank you so much, Ms. Fatim Zahra. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mrs. Bushra Shiri. Point well taken. Now, Mrs. Belhassin, I give you the floor to answer this question.
Thank you,
It's
Dr.
not a
Jad.
question.
It was yes. It wasn't a question. I agree with you, Bushra. We have to focus more on that skill, separate emotion between emotion and logic. Sometimes at the workplace, we can't always separate them. It's not easy, but we have to try every day to do it. Thank you, and thank you very much
Yes.
for your comment.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other sharing or participation?
Yes, please. I want to say, I don't know how to raise my hand. I don't know if it works.
It doesn't matter. Go ahead, Mrs. Ikram.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I want to thank Bushra for his very interesting topic. I just want to add something. I think that we must consider two aspects to critical thinking. The first one must focus on the disposition of the person engaged in critical thinking. And the second concern the ability of the person to have a critical thinking. That's all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Ikram, for your sharing. Do you have any comment about that, Mrs. Fatim Zahra? All right. If there is no more questions or comments about the subject or the topic, maybe we should switch to the second presentation in order to gain more time. If there is no objection, of course.
May I say something, Mr. Youssef?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Jad.
Okay, thank you. Let me commend Fatim Zara for a brilliant presentation, and as usual, she has been doing a great job. I don't know if I have to interfere during this or not, but I'm taking the risk since I can see there is some sort of reluctance from the attendees. So I'm going to take the risk and venture. Just a quick note on what Fatim Zara said, very interesting and a very good connection to COVID-19. Congratulations, and I want to commend you on the quality of your job. Can we say, Fatim Zahra, that can we summarize this into one sentence? Can we say that critical thinking is all about teaching people how to think rather than teaching them what to think? What do you think? I'm not sure. Was my point clear?
Yes,
Please,
yes, it was
Jeff,
clear, yes.
Can you repeat?
So,
we have a problem, connection problem.
Okay, sorry. I can do that with pleasure. So first of all, thank you for the presentation. A great job, Fatim Zahra. Now, can we just say briefly that a summary of your presentation or of critical thinking is that it's all about teaching people how to think rather than what to think. I mean, I want your opinion.
Thank you for you, Dr. Jed. Yes, if we teach people how can they think, we don't need to teach them what to think.
Yes.
They will be independent and autonomous to think clearly, logically, and make their own choices. Nowadays, the information, we have a lot of sources of information. So we have to teach our children how to think, how to select, how to question the information they find on internet, they hear at school, outside, etc. It's very important. It's all about how can we learn how ask questions more than what we have to learn.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Fatim Zahra.
And I can add, like I said at the first, at the beginning, there is nothing to have with criticizing. We don't question in just for questioning or criticize others or decisions. It's to look after the truth. That's all.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you, Fatim Zahra.
Thank you, Fatim Zahra. By the way, Mr. Jad, if you allow me to jump up on what you just said, this is the goal of our system, of any educational system, is to make the persons or the participants more independent in the way of thinking. It's to show them the way and open their eyes to how to think greatly and to think critically. I don't think that our educational system reaches this objective fluently or accurately, but it's the goal, it's the final goal. Maybe we can reach it, maybe not, but definitely this is the way that we follow in our educational system.
Okay, Thank you.
All right, so if there is no more participation or question, maybe we just switch up to the other subject of this presentation. And yes, Mr. Sami?
Can I make a point?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. I would like to thank Ms. Fatim Zara for this great presentation. And I want to add that within any organization, I think critical thinking is a key skill, especially in the process of decision making. And I think that COVID-19 pandemic shows us that we need to go beyond the problem solving and start to think about question rising. What I mean by that is we need to think about the expected risk in the near future and not waiting for problem to find suitable solution. We have to think about the risk in the near future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sami. We are unfortunately starting to be rushed by time. We may take maybe 2 additional questions before closing the debate on this topic. So I will give the floor to Mr. Mazuri first, and then to Mrs. Zainab Harhour to ask their questions. Go ahead, Mr. Mazuri.
Can I just draw your attention, please? Quick note, it seems that the other people who are attending the meeting cannot activate their mics. They don't have access to the mic. I'm not sure whether this is correct or not, but if it seems to me that the attendees can raise their hands, but they cannot activate. They cannot mute or unmute their mics. I don't know if technically speaking, if there's anybody who can help them out.
Yes, it's true. Mr. Mazuri just confirmed it by chat.
Yes.
Dr. Tahtah, please, I ask Si Farid if you can do something. Si Farid.
Yes. Thank you, Cecil.
Okay.
And also, it's okay for all participants, please. And also for the person who raised her hands, there are dots at the top of the screen. Can you see the dots at the top of the screen? Click there, and you can raise your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Youssef.
Welcome, Mr. Mazuri.
Thank you very much. Thank you also for to Madam Mrs. Hussein for her listing and
excuse me, can you mute your mic, please?
Okay.
Should we mute it? Unmute it?
Yes, please. If the participants can mute their mic and just leave the field for the person who raised her hand.
Okay, can I go on?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Mazuri.
Thank you, Mr. Youssef. Many thanks also to Mrs. Hussein for her relevant and interesting presentation. The question of last question raised by Mr. Jad is the heart of this topic. Is critical thinking about showing us how to think or what to think? the answer is clear. We are dealing about how to think. And the question, what I want to share with you, why we are asked to learn how to think. Especially, it is interesting for making decisions, for making relevant decisions. And so, if we put this perspective in the issue, we understand that critical thinking is some rules, set of rules that allow us to take the best information, to select what information is finally the right decision. I wanted just to complete some ideas about the common logical fallacies. There are also other fallacies that we can avoid by critical thinking, like introducing our specific situation and the subject we are thinking about, or introducing more emotional aspects in this way. So thank you, Mrs. Hussein, for this interesting topic, and we learned a lot about it today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Youssef Mazouri. Maybe we should have the participation of Mrs. Zainab Harhour, and we switch quickly. Mrs. Zainab.
Thank you, Youssef. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Youssef, for moderating this topic, and thank you to Ms. Fatima Zahra for this interesting topic. In addition to what Mr. Jad said, I just want to complete about how to support our children to think, or because there is no one strategy to support or teach our children how to think critically. As parents, our role might sometimes be to ask open-ended questions. This is the way how I try with my child to guide the thinking process. In other cases, it may be more appropriate to allow our children to experiment and refine their stories, or what how these things happen, to give them a critically thinking process can have a positive impact on problem solving skills.
Okay, Mrs. Zainab, point well taken.
Youssef, may I intervene, please? Just
yes,
very
Mr. Azimut. Yes,
well,
of course.
thank you. Thank you all, organizers, presenters, moderators, and attendees. Well, I would just like to add something that will be food for thought, maybe for the coming seminars. When we talk about thinking in general, we have 5 types. First one is superstition, which is superstitious thinking. Second, and I put them in order according to history. is religion. Third one is science. Fourth one is philosophy. And the fifth one is ideology. Now, if we consider the Moroccan culture, we are using all the five. You can find somebody who is superstitious, religious, empirical, which means scientific, philosophical, and ideological. Critical thinking, of course, selects among the five and focuses mainly on religious, scientific, and philosophical. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Aznoud. Thanks for the sharing. A final thought maybe for Mrs. Benhassin. Do you have a final thought in order to wrap it up?
Mr. Yusuf, I raised my hand before.
Okay, Mrs. Najwa.
Or you
okay.
wait. Thank you, Mr. Yusuf. I want just to add that have a critical thinking is not an occasional behavior. It's a way of life. So I think to have this kind of life, this way of life, we should be educated in this this behavior or in this critical thinking, and also we should learn how to think critically at school. And I think my question is for Ms. Fatima Zahra, is our educational system allowed us, teach us to critical learning, to critical thinking, and our children are did the system educate our children, teach our children how to be critical thinker, and our education at home also does the education at home allowed children to be a critical thinker, because now we know that it's important to be critical thinker, but we don't have the tools. This is my question for Ms. Fatima. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Muataz. Mrs. Benhassin, if you have any comment about these questions.
Thank you, my dear Najwa. Can the moderator allow me to share my screen, please? I want to share my screen, but I can't.
Okay, you can go.
Thank you. This is what I think, Najwa, about our educational system, our schools now. You can see the picture?
Yes.
Unfortunately,
it's right.
This is what I think about our schools now. So for me, thinking is born of questions. Asking questions is a very important part of our lives, of decision making and problem solving, like my colleague said. Questions wake us up. Questions alert us to hidden assumptions. Questions promote curiosity and create new distinctions. As you said, critical thinking is now the most important skill to teach to our children at school and at home. There is many risks to consider. It's not easy to teach children how to be a critical thinker, because it's very tough to parents. Children have to question everything, have to be curious about everything, because there is a lot of information now. They need to know how to select, how to make decision, how to find the truth in all of this. This is what I think. And our religion teach us how to be critical thinking. The Prophet Muhammad, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, they asked questions about everything. They know the truth, they know the answers, but they didn't stop asking questions. I think it was for us. They were trying to teach us how to think, how to be critical thinkers. Thank you, Najwa.
Thank you, Mrs. Ben Hassin. Yes, definitely, I agree with you. Now I think that we are just taking too much time in our schedule. Maybe we should leave the floor for Mrs. Ikram Khatir to moderate the second presentation. Mrs. Khatir?
Yes, thank you.
So I'll give you the floor to moderate the second presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hello, professors, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this special COVID-19 webinar. Let me introduce myself. I'm Ikram Khatir. I am the head of the monitoring of national and international reports at the Department of General Affairs and Governance. I'm happy to be with you today to moderate the presentation of Mrs. Bushra Shiri. For over a year, a lot of our habits have changed as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. You know, it's like we're thrown into a world we're not used to. Something new, other habits a little stuck, confused, etc. In this webinar, we are going to focus on one of the aspects of our life that COVID-19 has impacted, the workplace. The impact of COVID-19 redesigning workplace. Mrs. Bushra Ashiri will present this topic to the audience today. But first, let me introduce our presenter. Ms. Bushra Ashiri is the head of communication at the Department of State-Owned Enterprises and Privatization since 2007 in the Ministry of Finance and Economy. Bushra, please, the floor is yours. We have 40 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ikram. Good afternoon, everyone. It is a real pleasure for me to take this opportunity and talk about the COVID-19 impacts redesigning the workplace. Today, I'm going to share with you some information and statistics about the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on workplace. But first of all, I would like to thank our department and the Institute of Finance, especially in collaboration with Al Akhawain University, for giving us this wonderful opportunity to improve our English through this specific training cycle. I would like also to thank deeply Dr. Jad Tahta, our professor, for all his efforts. Without further ado, let's begin.
Hello, Bushra? We don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now it's okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I will divide my presentation into three major parts. The first one is the biggest changes to the way we work. Then I will try to answer the question if working remote is a blessing or burden. We will try to weigh the pros and cons. Then trying to give some tips to be productive with the home-based work. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. The biggest changes to the way we work. March 2021 marks 1 year since the beginning of state-mandated stay-at-home orders and workplace shutdowns due to the global COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic has caused the most significant disruption to workplaces in generations and has changed our life in many ways, in the way we work, the way we use technology, our work-life balance, the future of flexible working, and so on. COVID-19 has forced both employers and employees to quickly pivot and change. I can say that COVID-19 will have a huge impact of us as individuals, as a society, and as a workforce. After the COVID-19, some things will go back to the way they were, but for others, there will be a new normal. And I think we are living now this new normal. The workplace culture has been radically altered due to the pandemic. This workplace culture was always associated with many other problems, such as pollution caused by traffic, work pressure, lack of time for ourselves, lack of quality time with our family. Coronavirus will definitely change the way we work in 3 ways. By introducing remote work, by introducing online meetings, which are working out, and what we are doing now, it's a clear example of the fact that online meetings are working out. And the third way is by introducing more flexibility in working hours. Let's start with home-based work. Earlier, working remotely wasn't considered to be a sound option because it was believed that it can make a person less productive and affect work in progress. It was frowned up usually a few years ago, but with 2020, this year, 2020, the year 2020 was considered as a game changer for remote working culture because being forced to be locked down, people were compelled to work from their homes. In the beginning, it was rough starts since it was something new, but now virtual offices are going really smoothly and people are enjoying this new trend as managing personal and work life has never been so easy. The COVID-19 pandemic has made it clear for all of us that companies, public administration can really save traveling budgets and a lot of other expenses. Companies can also extend business ventures and collaborate beyond borders and beyond geographic boundaries, and can also increase profits. So rather if it's Zoom meeting or it's WebEx, virtual meetings are going to be a vital part of business ventures, even in the post-pandemic workplace. Let's talk about flexibility in working hours. I would say here that the notion of working from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and being forced to be productive during all these hours has proved to be wrong altogether. Work from home strategy has worked out really well for so many of us. The flexibility in working hours and not having to work for consecutive 8 hours is health practices. Why? Because it reduces stress, keeps one focused on work, makes you more creative and more productive. Indeed, flexibility in working hours has brought ease and availability of time to spend with family. So to wrap up all this, I can say that a sudden stop to all of the hassle was much needed for all of us. The calamity that coronavirus has brought is undeniable, but we cannot ignore the positive change it has brought into our lives. It wouldn't be wrong to say that the COVID-19 outbreak has changed the workplace forever. Here in this slide, I will focus on the Ministry of Economy, Finance and Administration Reform case, our department, which has taken a series of precautionary measures to mitigate the impact of this pandemic on the daily work and the productivity of the public administration. So many practical guides were elaborated to prevent the spread of the virus within the premises of the public administration, including, of course, based home work. We can see here pictures of the practical guidance elaborated by our department. And we can say that our ministry was a pioneer as usual. So I will focus on the home-based work guide, which interests us here. This this home-based work guide give a definition of the concept and the objectives of the home-based work. It can tell us where and when it should be applied, give us an overview of the rules related to home-based work, also commitments of either the administration or the civil servant, and give also some information about the implementation mechanisms. This home-based work, for the home-based work guide, the objective for public administration by remote work is to increase performance and efficiency for the public administration, is to reduce absences, is to increase also productivity and reducing expenditures, and is to ensure also the continuity of public administration services. For the civil servant, working from home has an objective of achieving a work-life balance, which is very important. And it's important to say it at the beginning, means that the public administration is aware of the importance of a work-life balance. The second objective is increasing time to the other tasks, so you can exercise, you can be more creative in parallel of your work time. The third objective is reducing the transport costs. Now I'm reaching the second part of my presentation, which is the question of, is working remote a blessing or burden? Here I will try to focus my attention on key findings of several studies carried out about the impacts of home-based work. And according to recent studies, working from home is a mixed bag. That means that we have advantages and disadvantages. But despite all the positive impact about home-based work, some studies suggest it's not what it's cracked up to be, because we have social isolations, employment uncertainty, home-based work burnout, and the virus itself have combined the shock, the mental health and well-being of workers worldwide. Here I will start with the first study carried out with the SAP Qualtrics Mind Share Partners on a sample of 2,000 employees in Australia, France, Germany, New Zealand, Singapore, UK, and USA. And the key findings shows that over 40% of people said their mental health has declined since the COVID-19 outbreak. The second study is conducted by Udemy of over 1,000 US employees. And the key findings here is that 89% are afraid of COVID-19 in the workplace, and their fears have compromised their job performances decline since the COVID outbreak. Here we reach a very interesting study carried out by Twin Gates of over 1,000 remote employees. So we have here 58% of remote employees are discussing sensitive information through online meetings. Here we have 48% feel more secure by working from home. Almost 60% feel insecure when they are working in office. Here we have 45% of remote employees attending more meetings during the pandemic than when working in the office. And also 40% of employees experienced mental exhaustion from video calls while working remotely. And over 1 in 10 employees had their video calls hacked during remote work. Remote employment is causing workers to lose a sense of work-life balance during the pandemic. Means here that there is no boundaries between work life and between personal life. The last foreign study is conducted by Doodle. The key finding here is that a full week of virtual meeting leaves 38% of employees feeling exhausted, while 30% felt stressed. The second one is that performance anxiety and business pressure push employees into competitive mode. That means that 63% of employees were likely to record, imagine, they record and rewatch their virtual meetings to help them become more presenters and strengthen their client relationship. Noise throws online meetings off track and leads to miscommunication. And here we have 52% of employees said background noise and or poor audio quality disrupt their focus, while 83% said it leads to miscommunication with clients. And even if the future of work is remote, in-person client meetings will always be in demand because 40% of employees are less likely to meet clients virtually once the government-imposed lockdown and social distancing rules have been lifted. Here we reach the Moroccan case, and I found a very interesting survey carried out by the job website recruit.com on April 2020. It shows that 50% of companies have more than 80% of their staff in home-based work. 54% are satisfied with teleworking and are productive. And amazing, 90% want to integrate teleworking into their daily life after the COVID pandemic. 42% work with their company's IT equipment. They are well equipped. And 33% do not have an office space, which could affect their productivity and the quality of their work. In terms of pros and cons, we can say that the 2 points most appreciated in teleworking is for recruit.com for this survey is the saving of time and the flexibility in the organization of work. And the less appreciated aspect is the overflow of working time into personal time and the isolation. To wrap up all this, I can say in terms of pros and cons of remote work, it's a mix. Finally, the home-based work, it's a mixed bag. But still, while the complexity of remote working have also been led by the benefits far outweigh the disadvantages and have shown that with the right procedures in place, companies can survive and thrive from anywhere in the world. The way companies manage these challenges today will be very telling for their prospects tomorrow. And it may take years, or even decades, to fully understand the long-term ramification of the COVID-19 health crisis. But one thing is sure, working remotely will absolutely become part of our new normal. Here we reach the last part of my presentation with tips to be productive with the home-based work. And the question how to improve employees' productivity. And I think that companies and public administration have to stay in tune with employees, with civil servants to boost morale and performance during this unprecedented time. Companies should communicate clear policies and clear objectives for their employees, keep the company's culture alive and make the expectations known. I would add that we should confine to be more productive with the remote work. You should confine your workspace to a specific area in your home so your job doesn't intrude into the lives of other household members and you can concentrate more. You should block the excess noise from household members or ambient traffic with noise cancelling headphones. After a reasonable day's work, put away your electronic devices and work tools. Keeping work reminders, because keeping work reminders out of sight, keep them out of mind and helps you relax and recharge your batteries. And that's what we should do all after our meeting today. Avoid cabin fever. That means that get outside as much as possible with gardening or walking around your houses. And after work hours, you should enjoy other areas of your home, such as watching a good movie, reading a book, cooking a fun meal, taking more time with our kids. And finally, we should keep our attitude in check. Above all, be creative and don't let your confined circumstance draw your tranquility, happiness, and creativity. And I will end with a positive note by saying that our greatest power is our perspective. It can victimize us or empower us. When you look for the upside in the downside situation and figure out what you can control and what you cannot, it's easier to accept whatever is beyond your control. Your best ally is to find the opportunity in the difficulty during an uncomfortable situation like what we are living now, instead of trying to find the difficulty in the opportunity. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Bushra, for inviting and engaging us in this very interesting point. I want to also thank you for efforts you spend on it, and I can assure you that we need a presentation like this in these very special circumstances. So Bushra told us about the biggest changes to the way we work. She's shown us how much the workplace culture have changed, more flexibility, online meeting, for example, etc. Bushra also shown us how Ministry of Finances set up some tools to deal with the pandemic in the workplace. And she presents advantages and disadvantages of working remote. And she finished by precious advices. Now I guess we can open the floor for questions, additions, or discussion. Please go ahead. Who wants to open the bar? I know we are at the end of the day. We must be tried, but just think about our position in the workplace in this special circumstance. What do you want to say?
I think we are all concerned.
Yes, Moulay Youssef, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Ikram. Thank you, Mrs. Bushra, also for the presentation. It was brilliant indeed, and clear, concise, and precise as always. So thank you for the choice of this topic. I just want to add a little sharing about the flexibility that you mentioned during your presentation. And I want to add that flexibility in terms of working hours is a double-edged advantage, because for my case, I use it to work more than the statutory 8 hours during the lockdown. And I think that it's not only my case. I think during the lockdown, we all had to work from home, and we just overflowed over the 8 hours that we had to work. So sometimes I find myself that I'm still working until I don't know, 80 hour or something like that, and I just missed some precious time with my family or with my kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Youssef, for adding that. Me too, I agree with you. It's very interesting that flexibility has double advantages for me too. Bushra, what do you think? You agree with Youssef?
Yes, I definitely agree with Yusuf. This is my case also. But still, for me, it doesn't matter if I can work even 10 hours a day. If I'm in my comfort zone, if I have my mug near me, my coffee mug near me, I can see my daughters in front of me. I can manage my work life and my duties, my work life and my family duties. For me, it suits me perfectly, the home-based work. It suits perfectly my way of thinking, my way of working. I feel more productive with home-based work.
Okay, thank you, Bushra, for clarifying this idea. Anybody else want to react? You know, before the pandemic, the workplace was essential to productivity, to winning the war for talents, etc. But now, I think it's time to ask big question about how work should be done. What do you think? Rashid? Rashid? Zainab? Do you hear me? I think Zainab Harhour, you have a problem with the... Yes, go ahead, Zainab.
Yes, thank you, Ikram, for moderating the topic. I commend Bushra.
Oh, welcome.
Her presentation, as usual. We cannot say anything about it.
Thank you.
I just have a little question that how the people should face the return to the workplace. Each one of us is experiencing the crisis differently. Some are juggling with the child, some are caring for vulnerable people. Sorry, this is the case. Are you hearing my son?
Hello, Zainab?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you for your intervention.
Sorry for the interpreter. So the question is just how will we take how to I forgot my question. Sorry. Should our approach to transition the employees back to their places of work be done on case by case, personalized basic, or not? Thank you, Bushra. That's all for
Okay, thank you, Zainab. Yeah, thank you, Zainab. Bushra, do you understand the question?
Yes. I think yes.
Yeah.
I would say to Zainab that it's obvious that it won't be easy to the transition between post and pre pandemic for employees to return back to their offices in a normal way. That's the reason why I think companies and public administrations has to conduct change driving strategies for their employees and for the civil servant to make them feel more comfortable with the reconnection with each others.
Okay, thank you, Bushra, for your explanation and your response. So do we have, Yusuf?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, great.
I second the position of Mrs. Harhour because she asked a very interesting question. How can we manage our home working base with all the kids and all the struggle that we have in our houses, and how can we schedule our program and working? So in other words, can we have some tips or hints about home working, and how can we manage this working fluently and rationally?
So, Yusuf, if I understand how to conciliate between working at home and manage with the children, yes, there is your question.
Yes,
Yeah,
some of
okay.
it, yes.
Yes.
How can we deal with home working based, especially when we have kids and little kids at home?
Okay, thank you, Bertha.
Yes, I think with the kids at home, it's not easy at all to manage your work when you have kids. But I think that we should be very organized in our home. We should be very creative with kids to keep their attention while you're working. So you should give them some. We should make them play some very interesting games while you are working. I'm not talking about electronic games, but you should occupy them with the drawing, with the reading, some interesting books or stories. So you should be very creative to keep the attention of kids and to manage your day of work with kids. It's organization. You should be very creative, and you should be very patient also. You should be very patient, very creative, and well organized. You should also, I think, you should manage special spots for you for work, so as not to be disturbed by the other members of your family, and so on.
Thank you, Bufra, for your
You're welcome.
I agree. As you say, this is not obvious to deal with this such a problem, but I'm sure that as human have a big capacity to deal with the problem and capacity to adapt in a very complex situation. So I don't know if we have another participant who want to react. Mr. Sami Baba, please go ahead. Thank you. Mr. Sami, do you hear me?
Yes. Thank you,
ahead.
Ikram. Thank you, Ikram, for
You're welcome.
moderating this panel, and thank you also, Bushra,
You're
for this
welcome.
presentation. In
You're
fact,
welcome.
COVID-19 has disrupted the way we work, and I think virtual meeting and remote work are here to stay. And we need to question the traditional 5 days work. I want to say that it was set in 1919, and this is time to question this period of work, because there is many companies, especially multinational, who experience new schedule of 4 days working time, like Unilever in New Zealand, and they have found that there is a rise in the productivity of employees, because they are now considering the well-being of employees, and they are finding the right balance between the family life and professional commitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sami, for your intervention. I think that is all the time we have for our presentation today, ladies and gentlemen. I will
Ikram,
yes,
Ikram,
yes,
please, may I add the final thing about my topics? For
of
me
course.
personally, what's afraid me about the home-based work is the sensation of isolation, because the connection we have with other people, this what separates us from robots. So because nothing will take the place of those warm interactions between people, and that can make us more creative, can make us more innovative. This is the lack of the home-based work for me with the COVID-19.
Okay.
And I think at the end that COVID-19 has made us appreciate those interactions more than ever. And thank you, Ikram. Thank you for moderating the presentation.
Thank you,
Thank you
Bushra,
for all the attendees. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Bushra, to complete with that. Thank you again. Bravo to the audience. The debate was very instructive. We know that today the COVID-19 pandemic requires reinventing workplace, working differently, enabling flexibility. These are the keywords identified by Bushra and by you, webinars. The key is to redesigning the workplace during and after COVID-19. So, Bushra, if you don't have anything to add, no?
No, thank you, Ikram. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the attendees.
Welcome.
Yes.
Okay, well, welcome now. Okay, Doctor, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ikram. I'll take the lead because we reached the third presentation. My name is Sami Baba. I'm a senior officer in the department at the Department of Treasury and External Finance, and I'm thrilled to moderate this topic, which is about degrowth, a global solution to issues, pandemics, environmental crisis, and inequalities. And it will be presented by Ms. Bushra bin Muhammad. I hope you still have energy to follow the presentation and to engage with us. Before starting the presentation, let me introduce the speaker. Ms. Bushra bin Muhammad has been working in the budget department since 2010. She holds a degree in statistics from the National Institute of Statistics and Applied Economics with a degree in statistics. Recently, she joined the team in charge of the implementation of the public investment management reform. I'd like also to remind you that the presentation will be followed by a Q&A session. So make sure to take notes. And last reminder to the speaker and also the audience to respect the allotted time. We have the challenge to reach this the end of the presentation within I think 30 minutes. So with no further ado, Ms. Bushra, we are all ears. Ms. Bushra, do you hear me?
Do you hear me? Do you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, because I
it
would
works.
like to share the screen. I don't know if it's already shared. No?
No,
Not yet.
not yet. Try to unshare and share it again, please.
Okay. So, do you see this?
Yes, now it's working.
It's working. Okay, thank you.
You can zoom in.
So, do you see the full
Perfect.
screen?
I think.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. But here is something that I can't. Okay. So, do you hear me right now? Do
Yes.
you hear me? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, and sorry for this convenience. I would like first and foremost to seize this opportunity to express my great appreciation to our ministry and to Al Akhawain University for such interesting initiative. I would like also to thank the audience for being here today and taking part of such interesting discussion. Before introducing the topic, just let me just introduce or making you in the context, on the general context of the general context of the topic, and then I will be introducing the topic as well as the outline. Okay, so let's start. Have you ever questioned the viability of our current economic system? Have you ever felt that the global economic model is plunging us into the abyss? Do you ever get the feeling the system we're living is simply not sustainable? According to NASA, sea level is rising, ice sheets are shrinking, CO2 concentration and global temperature are increasing year on year. Deforestation is accelerating, air pollution rising, water quality deteriorating, and animal extinction rates are incredibly alarming. And all of these things are happening while global income keeps growing. And surprisingly, global inequalities are increasing. So while growing, income is diverging. And then came COVID-19, a game changer. Both physical and human capital were in decline, and what was in green before the pandemic occurred is now in red. And perhaps COVID is still with us for a long while. So COVID-19 show us how fragile the global economy is. It reminded us that how imbalanced our system is. And the problem is what we have seen during the COVID-19 is just a start. It's just the start that we're going to see as a result of climate changes. More and more disease, more and more imbalances at the level of financial imbalances, economic, social, and so on. So creating a new economy where resource use is stabilized and people's well-being is improved is no longer an option. It's of prime necessity. The good news is that too many people are working, they are working on it, and they are trying to find and to design a new economic system proposal. Today, I will be talking about one of these proposals, at least the one who seems to me the most reasonable, degrowth. So what is degrowth first? And can degrowth be the solution? Can it really work? Can it steer us towards a sustainable economy? I divided my talk into three main points. The first, I will be talking about the main issues of growth-driven economic system. Then I will be moving to the key element of degrowth paradigm, and third, I will be giving some limitation of the vision of the growth is trying to create. So what's wrong with growth? To understand what's wrong with growth, we should understand what growth is. Growth is the general increase in production and consumption over a given period of time. It's typically measured by the gross domestic product. And in the early 60s, almost all countries uses GDP growth as a measure, as a prime measure of the health of their economy. So basically, GDP growth become a very specific way that defined how good a society is, how good an economy is. And recently, economists uses satellite pictures to pursue the evolution of growth and to in a specific area, as the brighter the line shine in a specific area, the more the growth occurs. So we see the difference between the north areas and the south one. However, GDP growth says nothing about the quality of growth. It does not distinguish between good and bad activities. If, for example, governments invest in education, this adds to GDP. If there is a marine oil spills and we have to clean this up, this adds to GDP too. GDP says nothing about equity and the distributional aspect of income. Who gets what? Who doesn't? And GDP says nothing about the well-being, satisfaction, ecological degradation, happiness, environmental sustainability. So questioning growth may seem radical, controversial, or even offensive, but there are too many reasons to think otherwise. The first one is environmental scale. So in 2019, a study was conducted by the group of Earth System and Environmental Scientists, and the study aims at defining a safe operating space for humanity on this planet. So here, the area in the green area present the safe space, the planetary boundary, the safe operating space, and the transgressing one or more planetary boundaries may seem dangerous to our planet or even catastrophic. And unfortunately, till now, you can see here that we are transgressing three planetary boundaries have been crossed, and others in dangers of being crossed. So the first reason of questioning growth is that the environmental degradation continues to increase as growth takes place. Second reason, the human well-being. So different philosophers have defined the human well-being, many components of the human well-being, but the fourth main one are the social relationships, health, security, and goods and materials. And the three first ones here, these three components increases the human well-being limitlessly, but the fourth one, goods and materials, increases the human well-being, but just up into a certain point, up into a specific point. Among within and between countries, income is correlated with the well-being, life satisfaction. So it's correlated. As you richer, you're happier. As you poorer, you sadder. But this correlation is just up to a certain point. So when the basic needs have been met, additional income doesn't seems to buy additional life satisfaction. The second reason of questioning growth is that the well-being stagnates up into a certain point even when income increases. The third reason of questioning growth is equities. Doesn't growth benefit everyone as it takes? No, it doesn't. The top 1% of the richest people in the world hold more than the 50% at the bottom earns. So our world is looking like this and more contradictions that claims that inequalities continue to increase as growth takes place. So it's fair to conclude that growth is not good, either for environment or the well-being. We have definitely to replace our growth-driven economies with other visions, more sustainable and more equal. And this is what the growth paradigm is about. what is degrowth? Degrowth is focusing on things which can improve the global well-being and enhancing ecological conditions. The D here doesn't refer to the negative form of, it's not a negative form. It refers to decoupling from growth. Other economists call it steady-state economy, the new economy, a growth, sustainable economy, etc., etc. So, is it a voluntary recession? No, it isn't. It's not a recession. Degrowth is a planned and designed contraction in the richest nations so as the poorest one can achieve a dignified quality of life. So we're not talking about sacrificing anything, but we are talking about refocusing and revisiting priorities. Growth is not doing less of the same, because negative GDP growth under capitalism or growism has already a name. It's called recession, crisis, depression, and not degrowth. Degrowth is not shrinking everything and imposing austerity everywhere, because there will be some activities that will be enhanced, like education, healthcare, local production, and so on. Degrowth is the reduction of consumption as well as production in the richest nation, so as the poorest one can achieve a dignified quality of life. So let's be concrete. What does it look like in practice? So it's about reduction of the environmental impact, redistributing income, and promoting transactions. So typically there are many suggestions of policies investing in real priorities, for example, and focusing on the real priorities. Two, sustainable and redistributed tax policies. We will see some reforms in tax policies, such as shifting taxation from labor to material consumption, income taxes, taxing labor-intensive services, taxing pollution, energy, and so on. Three, universal basic income or universal basic services. So there is a debate on which is better, basic income or basic services, but the idea here is to guarantee and that all people can have access to their basic needs such as education, health, electricity, clean water, internet, and so on. So four, changing social norms and the imaginary of the well-being, and this will be provided by via the educational system or media. And we know, all of us, we know that capitalists under a capitalistic society, media try to make from rich people or owners of big cars or the last model of iPhone. They trying to make from them the image of a powerful, successful people and powerful people, and in the growth society, they will be, media would be celebrating intellectual people or scientists and so on. So in a degrowth society, advertisement will be reduced and will be controlled. And also there will be no more planned obsolescence. In a capitalistic society, we see that companies just keeping making things that are literally trash, and you have to repurchase a few time later a new product, the same product, because it's trash. And instead of new models of cars, new models of phones, new trends of clothes, so if you have each time to rebuy the same thing just a little while later, and this will not be a practice in a degrowth society. So unnecessary production and consumption will be removed. Job strategies. So the biggest challenge of degrowth thinkers is how can we deal with unemployment? Because if people hear no growth, automatically they hear no jobs. So there are some propositions like sharing, reducing working hours. For example, if the consumption will be reduced, then people will be able to work less and earn less and sharing more. The idea is that more people working to make the same things because of the problem of unemployment. Online working has been already talked about in the last presentations. During the COVID-19, we experienced this practice, and it was really very possible. Reforming the banking system. Reforming the banking system. This is actually a very important axe for degrowth, because creation of money out of thin air by private banker will not be a practice in a degrowth society. 7, reviewing the debt policies such as debt forgiveness, ecological debt, or even carbon debt. So to sum up, with degrowth is not doing less of the same. Degrowth is a designed reduction of economic growth in order to achieve a high quality of well-being for all people and for future generations. So the problem here is that too many people are rejecting the idea because there are too many limitations. Yes, we should acknowledge that it's not perfect, and there are too many limitations that we should deal with. For example, collective action problem. Degrowth have a very requires a big collective action and a huge international collaboration. All countries should join degrowth model. Degrowth needs a big overhaul of the financial sector. The problem here is who will pay for it, and this is one of the limitations. Degrowth sounds like an utopia. It does not distinguish. It does not give a concrete design of the utopic vision it's trying to create, and it's a kind of a reversal to everything. But the fact that capitalism is a reality doesn't make it more reasonable. And slavery system was for centuries ago in place and was considered like a natural process, and it didn't make from the slavery system as a reasonable process. So I think we don't have a choice. We really don't have a choice, because capitalism is guiding us towards a much bigger journey in which, instead of looking for a plan B, we'd be rather looking for a planet B. And all of us still remember those days during the lockdown, when water of Venice became beautifully clearer and crystallized. And those days when nitrogen dioxide pollution has declined in China, in Asia, in Europe, in USA, Colombia, in every places in the world. Those days when animals were breathing cleaner air, and when marine species has returned to their natural lives. Really, COVID-19 is teaching us how should we react and interact with our Earth. We should definitely make from the pandemic crisis an opportunity for a sustainable future for all people, and never let a good crisis go to waste. Imagine a world in which our Earth is not abused. Imagine a world in which every single person lives a dignified life. Imagine one night, just before going to bed, you have the same sad picture before your eyes, but this time with the lights up in the south and lie down in the north. If we want to build the world like this, we should definitely recognize at first that small is beautiful, less is more, and enough is enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Bushra, for this great presentation. You have walked us through the concept of degrowth in a smooth manner. You have started your presentation by putting us in the context of the negative side of our economic system or the capitalist system. And you have mentioned that what is wrong about growth and GDP is as a pure quantitative measure is no longer suitable to measure the human development. And you have mentioned that the degrowth paradigm, it goes through many policies like the universal basic income or to change social norms and imaginary of well-being. And it is, I think, the degrowth now is, it is between the hand of wealthy nation because it needs a global agreement to plan or to design to go to this planned contraction in the richest nation. So, in the beginning, Ms. Bushra, you remind me one of the campaign of Greta Thunberg concerning the climate change when you talk about the bad effects of our economy. So now we can move to the floor, to the audience. I give the floor to the audience if you have some comment or question. We have, I think, 10 minutes, and you can start by mentioning or precision if you have a comment or a question, and go ahead. If there is someone who wants to react.
It's a controversial topic. No one wants to talk.
So let me fuel the discussion by asking you about the relevance of degrowth to developing countries, which tend, in fact, to have high growth rates to ensure employment for youth people. Is it relevant for countries like our country or other developing countries?
So basically, the most challenging topic in degrowth is unemployment, and yes, it's really a difficult challenge that scholars are working on it to develop some new promising ideas to deal with. But let me just give you some interesting point about this question. First one is that the relationship between growth and job creation is much weaker than we could expect, because people are having this link in their mind just automatically, no growth, no jobs. But the relationship is just much weaker. I have some statistic here from the study that was conducted by the Policy Center of the New South that claim that in Morocco, for example, if GDP goes up by 1%, then the unemployment tend to fall by 0.13%. And for example, for G20, if GDP increases by 1%, the unemployment rate fall by 0.26%. And in Japan, for example, there is no relationship. So the correlation between these two variables is really not as strong as we can imagine. And the idea here also, I have another point, is that population grows much slower than the GDP growth. If we see, for example, if you take the data of the World Bank, and you see the last decade, the population is growing between 1% and 1.2%, and GDP growth is fluctuating between 2% and 4%. So even people that they say that population is growing, we should making our economies growing to respond to this population growth. GDP growing much speeder than population. And here this is a topic that academic degrowth thinkers are talking about, and there are some papers that are discussing this, how can we deal with this challenge. And this is from one of the biggest challenge that degrowth has.
Thank you. Thank you, Bushra, for this answer. And hopefully, Bushra, you have run the presentation in a special day, because today is the Earth Day,
Yes.
April 22.
Yeah.
So it is suitable to discuss this issue about the degrowth and
Yes.
the
We are
impact on
celebrating
our...
the day.
Yes, yes. So if there is no other comment or question.
I wanted to react. I raised my hand, but probably there is a problem.
Sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Zainab Harhor.
Okay. Thank you, Bushra, for your topic. Thank you, the writer. Today, with the coronavirus, we observe a less production, less consumption, and secondly, less extraction, less waste, less pollution, less travel, less noise, etc. We hear about population showing down, giving up, or attend demonstration of solidarity, creativity. We contemplate the awakening of spring. There are the remarks made by activists for economic decline. Due to confinement, their theory becomes more and more audible. So, will the coronavirus, I ask myself, will the coronavirus be the starting point for setting up a new economic system? What do you think, Bushra?
Okay, thank you for the question. It's a very interesting question. And yes, it depends, because the idea that we should transform these difficulties related to COVID and the actual and the recent context to opportunities is really discussed in too many organizations, international organizations, and also governments. We can see some strategies. We see many countries are working on some post-pandemic strategies, and we see that people just start, governments, politicians, people start to make this happen, and we can say that even these strategies are talking about the inclusivity of economies, for example, generalizing social coverage and health insurance for all people. Even we saw during the lockdown, some countries make some basic income for some categories of some segments of the population. And we hope that these they call them recovery strategies for recovery and for making their economies more resilient to new other shocks. And I think that this trend is starting now. Yes, they are talking about green growth, inclusive growth. They are just leaving the word growth. We want to grow, but inclusively, greenly. And for our topic today is not keeping growth, is making these things greenly and inclusively, but with some contraction in some nations that were just that have a mass consumption, as does have food waste, energy waste, and so on. So the model is a system, is a whole is the whole of system. All countries should pursue it, and all countries should join this trend. And thank you for the question. It was a very great interaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Bushra. Thank you.
Thank you, Bushra. I think we are nearing the iftar time. So if there is no other comment or question.
Please, I raise my hand. Can I?
Yes, yes, you can. You can.
Yes, it's me. It's
okay,
Ikram.
okay.
Okay. Thank you, Sami, for moderating this panel. I commend Mrs. Bushra for the presentation, and the topic is very important thing to think about it, because when we talk about degrowth, can we say it is an alternative to capitalism? Because as you said, that degrowth is about reducing energy and material flows in the economy, will sustaining basic human needs. Capitalism fosters the opposite trend. How then is degrowth to be implemented on a large scale, in line with the different critical intellectual traditions? We argue that degrowth is unlikely to occur within an economy based on capital accumulation and free market of assets. So I think that degrowth in the capitalism system now is an impossibility theory. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the good question, Ms. Ikram. In fact, degrowth is not the opposite just to capitalism, is an opposite to, if I can call it, the growthism. And growthism has, we can say, four main components: consumerism, capitalism, extractivism, and productivism. So capitalism, yes, is the main component, but there is another component, that the consumerism, how can I say it? That's people, consumers, are the main and the major component of this ideology, if I can say. And if we can start by people, and each one can be part of this solution, if we consume less, we will produce less, and the capital will go, not just doing less, but just the idea about less consumption. And the problem is impossible or not impossible. Yes, it might be not impossible. It might be difficult. It might be something that we can reach it, but it's really not hard, but it requires a big not revolution, but more and more people have to join this. We can see nowadays some people are convinced with some movement like minimalism, for example. If people, consumers, more and more, we have more and more mass to pursue this trend, it will be such a good thing. And for its dream, like all of us may think about, we can think that she is dreaming away and all degrowth thinkers are dreaming away. Yes, degrowth is a dream. It's a dream, but a dream that can be a reality. For example, the civil rights movement in America started with a dream when Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. And you can see now it's finished by the election of the first Black American president in 2009 of the United States. And it started with a dream. And now you can, for example, if someone, if it doesn't start with the Martin Luther's dream, segregation will still exist till this day. And for example, even for example, if we talk about, if we talk 30 or 40 years ago, if someone told you that robots will replace people in the workplace, you can see that it's impossible. It's a dream. But really, what we see now is that degrowth as an utopia is degrowth as an utopia is the most promising one, the most promising utopia that may exist, and the most logical. If you because in the first time when I really started learning about it, I was pretty skeptical about the idea. It's a reversal of everything we think we know. But the more I learn about it, the more I see the logic. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, I see your point. Ikram, is there any comment or?
No, it's okay for me.
She's still not convinced. She's still
Yes, I understand this is a new movement. It takes time. We are now in the phase of proof of concept of we have not try it. So I think we have reached the allotted time because we are running out of time. I would like to thank you, Bushra, for this presentation and also for the energy you put in this topic.
Thank you for your brilliant moderation.
And also I address my thanks to the audience for engaging with us, and hope we will continue to discuss in next series of webinar in many issues. Thank you all. Thank you, doctors. The floors, I give you the floor back. I give you back the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Sami Baba. I would like to thank everyone in this webinar for participating in this second conference. And I hope to see many of you in the next webinar on the policy evaluation for decision makers for next Thursday. And perhaps I invite you, if you have no objection, to still with us just 1 minute, if you can activate your camera to take a picture of the event, please. Can you do it?
All of us?
You hear me?
All of us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Ashiri, how are you? Now I can see you.
Fine, and you, Mr. Sally?
Thank you so much. Siaz Nud? We can't hear you, Cecily.
Yes, I'm here, Cecily.
Nice to see you.
Hours. When I say ours, I mean all the teachers, including namely Si Shafiq and Si Jad.
Si Shafiq? Shafiq? سي تحت حسابات؟
الحمد لله أستاذ سالي، اخبارك؟
الحمد لله، وش مبروكات.
الله يبارك فيك. C'est un plaisir de vous revoir.
Merci infiniment. سي شفيق، تبارك الله عليك. So for the end, if you have a سي تحتاح or سي شفيق, you have the floor if you want to add something.
Just to say that, thank you, Shafiq. Just to say that it's really a great pleasure to continue this series of webinars, and it's a great opportunity to connect with all our participants. Has been very rewarding, very rich discussion, and again, my renewed thanks to the Institute of Finance through you, Sadi, and for this great work, and my renewed thanks to my colleagues, Dr. Aznoud and Dr. Shafiq and Ms. Atina, and to all our participants, congratulating them for a great performance, and good luck for the future endeavors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I join my colleague in really thanking everyone, the participants, the moderators, and the people who have been behind this, all the event that started 2 weeks ago. Thanks for bringing it back again, and I'd like to thank all the participants for the efforts that they have expended on preparing their presentation. We've been following them, and they've been really working and rehearsing the presentation. This was really work in progress, and in the couple of weeks ago and today, we've seen really, you know, the fruit and the product of their English. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Well, Sally, thank you. I second my colleagues, Dr. Jad and Dr. Shafiq. Actually, what we are witnessing today of you and us, honestly, the project with your ministry has been very successful because you have facilitated our task, and we have very great participants who are really willing to learn, and we appreciate this. And of course, we are looking forward to more collaboration. Thank you, and thanks a lot.
Thank you. Perhaps Atina, you are with us? Atina? Atina, can you hear me? I think
no, Mrs. Atina left. She's not here with us.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for you, presenter, moderator, professor. Thank you very much, and see you next webinar and next Thursday, inshallah.
Thank you.
Ramadan Kareem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.